Transgender Persons Amendment Bill that's really raised a lot of questions and a lot of protests among the transgender community in the country. And quite a dramatic, controversial move. The Lok Sabha has passed the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Amendment Bill 2026, and this bill changes one of the most fundamental principles of identity in modern India. Now, earlier the law recognized the idea that a person has the right to define their own gender. But now that recognition may depend on medical examination and a certificate to prove it, and also a state approval that should be attached to it. Well, let's tell you exactly why this has exploded into a national controversy. The transgender bill was passed in the Lok Sabha amid an opposition walkout. Several parties, including the Congress, Samajwadi Party, Trinamool Congress, DMK, Shiv Sena, UBT, NCP and CPIM all walked out, saying they were not satisfied with the government's response. So to simplify this, so far, the larger legal principle in India, especially after the landmark Nalsa judgment of 2014, was this, that a person has the right to self-identify their gender. That was the spirit of the law. But now the new amendment shifts that principle entirely, and that is where the political and legal storm begins, because now the question is no longer only asks who you are, but also questions, can you prove it? If you are transgender, prove that you are transgender. That's what the bill asks for, proof. The government says it wants a precise definition of who qualifies as transgender person under the law. Its argument is that welfare benefits and legal protection should go to those facing real and severe social exclusion, especially those with specific biological, intersex or socio-cultural identities. So the law now focuses more tightly on categories such as Hijra, Kinnar, Aravani, Jokta and those with certain biological variations. Now, the government says this is about clarity. Critics, on the other hand, saying that this is actually about exclusion, that this ultimately excludes people based on gender, because what gets squeezed out of this definition are self-perceived gender identities that may not fit neatly into these categories. And that's why activists are now furious, because the law, they argue, is moving away from I know who I am to the state will decide if I qualify or not. The most controversial part, the biggest change and the one that has triggered the sharpest backlash is the right to self-identification is effectively being removed now. Earlier, the legal direction was if your gender identity does not match the one assigned at birth, your self-perception matters. Now, the new bill, that's no longer enough, because if you want legal recognition as a transgender person, you will now need certificate of identity. You need to prove it. And who gives that certificate? The district magistrate, the state. That certificate will only be issued after examination by a designated medical board. And a person applying for recognition must be examined by a medical board headed by a chief medical officer or a deputy chief medical officer. The bill allows a transgender person who gets this certificate to change their first name in official records, including birth certificates and other government documents. Then there is another important change. Under the earlier law, if a transgender person underwent gender-affirming surgery, they could apply for a revised certificate. Now the amendment reportedly makes that process more formal and mandatory. The medical institution or the institute where the surgery happens must also inform the district magistrate that it's happening. Now, supporters of the bill say that this just is a verification process. They say that the state needs clear system, benefits must go to the intended community, and legal recognition cannot be left entirely open-ended. But on the other side, people say that identity is not a medical test. What is the value of smoother paperwork if the right of recognition itself becomes much harder? And the surgery procedure, the activists say, it is surveillance of identity. And that difference in interpretation is what this battle is really all about. To be fair here, that is important as well. The government is not presenting this bill as anti-trans. The government says the bill is about protecting the genuinely vulnerable group. This bill is about stopping misuse. This bill is about ensuring benefits reach the intended community. Rights need structure, welfare needs verification. But then there is the counter argument there. Activists, legal experts, opposition parties there saying that that you cannot protect a community by first taking away its right to define itself. That is the core of this resistance here. Well, let me quickly bring in our guests for a little more clarity on this and how do they intend to take this forward. Zainab Patel, trans woman, Nalsa petitioner and DEI activist. We also have Sanjay Chadha, advocate of the Supreme Court.
Today you are
Let me
saying
ask
only the
Sanjay Chadha on that, as I'm very limited on time. Mr. Chadha, is there any way to reconsider this bill? What's your view on it?
Well, if really you ask me, the reconsideration of the bill, yes, certainly. This matter, as Janay was telling, that it has the earlier the proposition was such that only and only exclusively based upon the self declaration the decision was taken as to whether a person is a transgender or not. Earlier proposition was this. Now they have specifically excluded this, and as you have rightly mentioned in elaborated in your introductory remark, like self perceived people. If I perceive that I am a transgender and I go and give a declaration, and so it is now not possible. And DM has to, with the help of board, is required. Now I'm coming to, so that board will examine, medically examine, check it, and give the report. And based upon that only, the certificate whether I am transgender or not will be issued. That is the primary proposition, number one. Now, the question which you have asked, whether it can be challenged, very well. Yes, it can be challenged before the Constitutional Court, before the Supreme Court of India. You can very well challenge once this act is passed the Supreme Court if there is a reasonable ground to challenge it. The government, why government has done so? You have initially very correctly said that the welfare schemes which the government is trying to come up with, those schemes will not be, the benefit of those schemes will not be
going to the deserving, yes.
Exactly. And those people who self-perceived persons of a different sexual orientation, which are now specifically removed, will take the benefit. So that's all very specific. Number one. Number two, very quickly, two lines all I would like to say. Few offenses have been added. That is, I think nobody will have any problem on that. That if somebody is really discriminate with the transgender, kidnap with the intention to ask somebody, forcefully join the transgender community and beg money. So those things are, I think, okay. The only contention which she has rightly said is this, that whether self-declaration part is now.
And I really hope and pray that there is a way, that there will be appeal, and there is already an appeal. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and see where.
There should be a specific challenge to this. There is no such challenge so far, I feel. But there should be a specific challenge, giving the appropriate reasons which she has just mentioned, and many other things can also put forth before the court, and court will certainly take into account.
All right, let's see how this pans out. But I really appreciate Zainab